Genshin Impact's meta is about to change. So I got to try out Mavuika, and she is one of the most unique characters that Genshin released thus far. And I'm not just talking about her motorcycle playstyle. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh. No, don't take off your helmet. No! I can't move. Mavuika can also dish out an insane amount of damage, with a very high potential. You can even use her as a sub DPS. Is something tickling me? Huh, must have been my imagination. But hey, I don't know about you, but I prefer to use Mavuika as a main on-field DPS, so I can see her in full glory. And the scariest part? These were all done with an achievable build for Mavuika. So yeah, Mavuika just broke Genshin, literally. In this video, I will go over some of my personal experience playing Mavuika and explain her kits and playstyle, while suggesting some of the teams I tried her out with so you can see how well she will fit in your own character roster. Of course, a character also has their own limitations, and I did encounter some issues while testing her out. No! I was so close. So I'll also be going over some of Mavuika's pros and cons, an honest review in this video. Before I start, just a PSA that all the testings done in this video was in a creator experience server, so things are always subjected to change. And I also wasn't able to use every possible character for her. Also, while watching this video, if at any point you feel like your Primo Gems are in danger, make sure to check out Genshin's newest web event, Stand with Mavuika. In the web event, you can get up to 180 Primo Gems just by completing a few simple missions, so don't miss out. But anyways, the first thing I tried out with Mavuika was her ability to travel through the Natlan region. With Moanani's ability to ride her shark through the ocean, Shilonen's mountain climbing proficiency, and Chaska's expertise while traveling in the air, Mavuika is more of an all-rounder, with her being able to do everything that the other Natlan characters can do. This basically makes her one of the best characters to use while traversing through not just Natlan, but Teyvat as a whole. Furthermore, if you have her in a party, Mavuika's passive also decreases your party's Niso transmission cooldown by 20%, which makes it even easier to explore Natlan. Mavuika is also the most unique character in Genshin Impact. And no, I'm not talking about her motorcycle playstyle. Trust me, I'll go over that in a bit. I'm talking about her elemental burst. So the most important part to take away from this video is how her burst works. And I'll try to explain it as simply as possible, because she is unlike any other Genshin characters that had been released so far in the game. So in order to burst with Mavuika, you have to charge something called Fighting Spirit. So instead of charging energy, you charge Fighting Spirit for her burst. There are two ways to charge Fighting Spirit. The first and easier way is to consume Niso points with your team. Each Niso point you consume with a character, you will gain 1 Fighting Spirit. The other method to charge Fighting Spirit is by dealing damage with normal attacks. Each time the normal attack hits an opponent, you will gain 1.5 Fighting Spirit, and this can trigger once every 0.1 seconds. In order to charge Mavuika's elemental burst to full, you will need 200 Fighting Spirit. But here's the catch. You can actually use Mavuika's burst when you charge 50% of her Fighting Spirit, which is 100 Fighting Spirit. But bursting with only 50% of her Fighting Spirit isn't really recommended since you'll be dealing half of your damage, and only buffing half of the damage. So you're basically paying half of the price for what you get. Hold on. Did you just say buff? Yes, you heard me correctly. After bursting, Mavuika buffs the active character by a maximum of 40% damage, based on how many Fighting Spirit you consume, and this buff slowly declines to 0 after 20 seconds. I know that's a lot to unpack, so if anything doesn't make sense, feel free to ask questions down in the comment section below. So a general team for Mavuika if you want to burst with her every rotation is herself, Shilonen, another Natlan character, and a flex character like Bennett or Kazuha. Shilonen by herself already generates almost half of Mavuika's burst in one rotation, with Mavuika being able to generate 80 of her own Fighting Spirit gauge within one rotation. So you will already have 90% of her Fighting Spirit charged with just Shilonen and Mavuika. Yeah, I know what you're thinking now. Some of you probably skipped Shilonen's banner, or don't even have a Natlan character in general. Don't worry, there are still a few options for Mavuika even if you don't have Shilonen. So the first alternative is to pull for Mavuika's C1 constellation. This is the more expensive way, but it alleviates Mavuika's dependence on Natlan characters, as her own Niso point cap is increased from 80 to 120. And she can also gain Fighting Spirit 25% more efficiently. This means Mavuika can get around 150 Fighting Spirit by herself with C1, which is a big difference. Another option is a bit more achievable, but that is to use her in an overload team with Oraron. The team comp will most likely be Mavuika, Oraron, Chevris, and a flex, preferably another Electro character. You can use Fischl or even another DPS like Chlorind, and it'll work really well. I personally tested a team, and it definitely works as a good alternative. Of course, I'll also go into teams more in depth later in this video. Finally, the last choice you can make is to just ignore her burst and play Mavuika as a sub DPS. This way, you don't really have to worry about specific Natron team comps. And you could just use Mavuika's elemental skill, and she will do pyro damage every 2 seconds until her skill expires. Artifact-wise, you could just put Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City, Golden Troop to maximize her off-field damage, or even the Tenacity of the Monolith artifact set to buff. With that out of the way, let's get into Mavuika's elemental skill. Mavuika's skill is also very versatile, and you can make it function as both a main or sub DPS, depending on whether you tap or hold down the skill button. When you hold down the elemental skill, Mavuika infuses her normal and charge attacks to deal NISO aligned pyro damage to opponents with an infusion that cannot be overwritten. This is basically the motorcycle gameplay, and with charge attacks, you take circle impact into another level. On the other hand, when you tap E, you summon a ring which follows the active character around that deals AoE pyro damage to enemies around you. The best part is that the pyro damage has no internal cooldowns, which means every take of pyro damage of her skill applies pyro, kind of similar to another character that you might be thinking of. So yeah, Mavuika is pretty versatile in that she can be both a main DPS or a sub DPS, depending on your needs, and also what suits your playstyle more. With that being said, I'll be going over some of Mavuika's team comps and what I personally think of them. So if you want to build Mavuika as a main DPS, you will generally want to burst with her every rotation. Like I mentioned earlier, her best teammate is hands down Xilonen. One of my favorite teams is her Vaporized team with Xilonen, Furina, and Bennett. Okay, so this is one of my favorite team comps because it's Vaporized, it's easy, and there's also Furina in the team. But more importantly, the Fighting Spirit charge pretty fast with Mavuika and Xilonen working together. So basically one rotation, you can see that Mavuika already has like still charging, but a good amount of bursts already back. Just gonna wait until it's back, and then I could just do the burst. So yeah, only I vaporized, but still very big damage overall. Her best team, in my opinion, is the Melt team with Xilonen, Bennett, and Citlali. But unfortunately, I won't be showcasing this team in this video. But in my future videos, you will definitely see this team. Personally, I think her Overload team is very underrated, specifically the one that consists of Oraron, Fischl, and Chevreuse. Okay, so this team is mostly consists of just Overload in general, Chevreuse herself being like the premier Overload buffer. So every time a teammate triggers the Hypersense, which in this case, Mavuika triggering her NISO, we'll be able to get some Fighting Spirit from Oraron as well. So yeah, my burst is already out. And the boss is already almost like dead. I guess I'll just finish it first. So I don't have any burst anymore, but let's just do this again. Boss died way too quickly. But yeah, so I have minimal burst right now, and now that the boss respawned, we can try this again. And our burst should be able to come back rather quickly. Fischl's normal attack also can help out a little bit as well with her Fighting Spirit. So yeah, within 2 rotations, 1.5 most likely, Mavuika's burst is already back. I can just do this. And overall, this damage is actually pretty high. So yeah, definitely a team that I would suggest you guys trying out as well, since it's pretty free-to-play friendly. This team does very solid damage, and best of all, Mavuika can burst every rotation. So if you want to play her as a main DPS, and you don't have Xilonen, definitely try this team out as well. If you don't have Oraron, you can always replace him with Chlorind. Even though she is not a Natron character, Chlorind's normal attack are fast enough to be able to charge up Fighting Spirit at a decent speed. Alright, so this team doesn't have any Natron characters, but Chlorind's normal attack is actually pretty quick, as you can see. So it does charge up the NISO, the Fighting Spirit, decently quick. Although not as efficient as with Oraron, that's for sure. Wait, it's actually around the same as Oraron, so I kind of take it back, since Mavuika also generates 80 Fighting Spirit by herself. At C0 at least. But you still can't burst every rotation though, so that it in itself, it might be a flaw. But at least in the same wave of a domain, you'll be able to actually burst. Yeah, easy. Now let's go over a few teams with Mavuika as a sub DPS. Personally, I think Mavuika as a sub DPS functions as a mini Xiangling. Her sub DPS potential is more of a quality of life compared to Xiangling, since unlike Xiangling, she doesn't rely on her burst, and instead her off-field pyro applications activates with her skills. All you have to do now is to just tap Mavuika's skill every rotation and you're set. That being said, you might be curious on how the other Nathalon DPS characters do with Mavuika, right? So let's try out a team with Kinich first. Okay, so this team is actually pretty good. Mavuika fits Kinich's playstyle pretty well. As long as we can just keep on blasting the cannon, we get a good amount of damage, and also Mavuika's fighting burst will come back pretty quickly. Okay, so boss fight. Just gonna get my burst back slowly but surely. Boss is pretty easy though. Ooh, some nice cannon blast damage as well. Mavuika's burst is already available, but let's charge it to 200% before we actually use it. Then again, this boss might just like actually die before we can actually get our burst out. So, oh well. I'll just burst, even though I do less damage since I'm using 50% fighting spirit. Well, I kind of meant to do that. I want to say easy, but it wasn't really that easy. Mavuika pairs up with Kinich pretty nicely. Each cannon blast Kinich does, Mavuika gains 20 fighting spirit to her burst. Damage-wise, the ease of pyro application with Mavuika is also a plus, and I personally like it more than having to worry about Xiangling's burst and rotation. Mualani and Mavuika are also another interesting pair. In this team, we also ideally have to use Shilonen as well, so you can expect Mavuika's burst to recharge every rotation easily. Alright. How fast can we charge Mavuika's burst back? Take a look. Oh, it's already almost back, but let's actually just use Mualani and see my damage. Pretty high. Wow, that was quick. I didn't even get a chance to use Mavuika's burst, but it's like I'm playing her as a sub DPS anyways. Well, thankfully we have Mavuika because I wasn't able to kill that Hydro Slime if I didn't have her, so that was nice. Okay, these flying citizens are pretty annoying, so I guess we can just auto aim at it because Mualani probably would have missed the monsters by herself. Similar to Kenich's team, with Mualani, we just have to tap Mavuika's skill and forget about her while letting Mualani do her thing. I also have a few non-Nathalon teams that I attempted with Mavuika as a sub DPS. Here are my top 3 non-Nathalon teams that I enjoyed the most. But first, I have some honorable mentions. The Child International team usually consists of Kazuha, Xiangling, and Bennett. So instead of Xiangling, I just popped Mavuika in, and it works out pretty nicely. Alright, hopefully I can successfully demonstrate this. A little bit interesting with the monsters being a bunch of electro slimes, but hopefully this will get a point across. Alright, I probably just messed up rotation bad, but it's fine. I don't usually use Child, but this team worked out great. The next honorable mention is Gangyu's Melt team. I actually haven't used this team in so long. I don't have any shield characters right now as well, so hopefully this will be good. Okay, that's a lot of circles. Let me just create more. Yeah. Alright, enough joking though. Ooh, some pretty nice damage. I'm actually able to melt my attacks as well. Alright, get down here. Don't worry, that was just a scratch. Wait, where's the boss? Oh, it's not dead yet. I'm just in my sub DPS build, okay? This team might not be her best in terms of damage potential, but replacing Xiangling with Mavuika works nicely. And also it takes circle impact to another level. Alright, so coming at number 3 is Corinne's team. The only thing I need to watch out for in this team is the boss's giant farting attacks. So, wish me luck. Okay. They charged my Mavuika's burst back 1.5, so pretty nice. Uh-oh. That's not good. Let me just dodge the attacks real quick. And also heal up a little bit. Alright, I see enough. Oh, I'm actually using a dual blade, no wonder. Oh well. Even without Auraron, the Overload team packs a punch, especially if you have the best electro DPS in the team. Coming in at number 2 is the Risley team. This might come as a surprise for some of you, because I personally didn't build him until recently, in another video. But after pairing him up with Mavuika, this team packs a big punch. I'm actually pretty excited to see how much damage I can do. Get all my bursts up. Alright, maybe I'll do this as well. Sure. Okay. Some nice damage. Alright, my personal favorite sub DPS Mavuika team is of course the Navia team. I don't know why, but something about this team is just so satisfying to play with. Like Navia herself, her damage output is just so high. Even without like a perfect build. The only thing that she needs is more consistent crits, because I always have trouble critting with her for some reason. Otherwise, she's perfect. Alright. Primo Bishop can have his fun, but playtime is over. Alright, for real this time. Thank you. This team in general is just insanely good. And best of all, you don't have to rely on burst to deal damage. So to a burst hoarder like me, this team comp is perfect. Of course you can stick Shilonen in this team as well, but for a non-Natron team, this team works out fine. Feel free to experiment with any team that I just listed, or even come up with your own teams as well. If I miss any teams, or if you'd like to suggest some team comps, let me know in the comments below so everyone else can also try them out. No character is perfect, so Mavuika also has her strengths and weaknesses. Let's go over some of the flaws I noticed while trying out Mavuika. First is her reliance on Natron characters. If you want to burst comfortably with Mavuika, you will ideally have Natron teammates to charge Fighting Spirit, as normal attacks are just less efficient. Mavuika generates 80 Fighting Spirit every rotation with no constellations by herself. But if you don't have any other Natron characters, she'll only be able to full burst every 2.5 rotations, which is a pretty massive DPS loss. The other weakness that might just be me nitpicking is that her elemental burst animation is long. For an average player, it might not be that important, but for speedrunners, that few seconds that you lose might affect buff duration and clearing abyss 2 seconds longer. Last but not least, some people might not like her motorcycle playstyle. Personally, at first I was also skeptical, but after trying her out, I came to enjoy Mavuika and had a lot of fun. Alright, with that out of the way, what makes Mavuika stands out is her versatile kit. You can play her as a main DPS or a sub DPS. She can also be slotted into most teams as a sub DPS, and can even buff your main DPS characters to make them deal even more damage. That alone, in my opinion, definitely makes her more valuable as a character. Another good thing about Mavuika is that with the perfect team, she hits hard. You can get a crazy amount of damage with just her burst, and if you're looking to one-shot bosses, she's a contender for the best. Last but not least, she is arguably the best character to have when exploring Teyvat. Do you need to climb up mountains faster? Use Mavuika. Need to cross the ocean? She can go fast. You need to get to the other end of the mountains? She can also zoom through the air. Combining all the elements with the other Natron characters, you'll get to wherever you want fast. So what do you think about Mavuika? Are you gonna wish for her in version 5.3? Or are you polling for someone else? Let me know in the comments below, and if this video helped you out, click on the like button, it will also help me out. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.